All right, everybody, welcome back to the Spiritual Business Hour with Crystalline Bell. I'm Crystalline, and today we are talking about hosting retreats. I am really excited because I like, hold on one second, hold on, because somewhere that's here. There we go. It worked. Just in case anybody was wondering if it was going to work, it worked. It's working all over the place. It's perfect. All right. Sorry about that, guys. I'm still learning my technology here. Um, so I'm excited because we are talking about hosting retreats. If you are someone who loves helping people, and if you're spiritual, and if you've been to a great retreat, particularly one in nature, or if you've traveled somewhere, like you've traveled to Bali to do a yoga retreat, or you traveled to India to do an Ayurveda retreat, or you traveled to Costa Rica or Brazil to do an ayahuasca retreat, you probably fell in love with the retreat process and you probably know what it feels like to have gotten a big transformation or a big awakening of some sort from that retreat. Well, I know that I did, and I remember my ayahuasca retreat. And Lori, I'm going to bring you in a second here, but
Right.
I went to Brazil on a whim. Okay, I remember I was living in Long Beach at the time, and I was lying on my bed and I was listening to Sal George, and he was strumming his guitar and singing. And I'm like, I want to go to Brazil. And I'm like, why do I want to go to Brazil? And I'm like, I really want to do ayahuasca in Brazil. I wanted to have a healing experience. So I ended up hopping a plane to Brazil. I found this amazing small company that worked with they had a shaman. They took us into the woods, Chapada Diamantina. It was the jungle. We stayed in these little cabins and we had great food. And the shaman did this amazing work on us, and we took ayahuasca, and I had this beautiful connection with the trees and the world around me. And I truly left that retreat feeling like something had awakened in my soul. And while I had my own awakening for myself, I found that the environment was so right for healing that I wanted to give the experience to other people. And so I was determined to host my own retreat. And what I learned was that hosting retreat is not as easy as showing up and being taken care of at one. But that did not, don't let me think, don't lead me to making you think that you should back down from this. You should not. As a matter of fact, you should go forward, but maybe you want to get some information from an expert like our guest today here on Spiritual Business Hour. Maybe you want to get some expert help with someone like Dr. Lori McDowell. Now, Dr. Lori McDowell is a transformational strategist. She's a retreat engineer, a speaker, and the founder of Reimagine You Strategies, where she helps women business coaches and visionary leaders scale their businesses through extraordinary retreat experiences that create both income and impact. All right, Lori, welcome.
Hi, Crystal Lynn. I'm glad to be here.
Welcome.
Hi, Crystal Lynn. I'm glad to be here.
Hold on one second. I
Hi,
realize I'm still
Crystal
having
Lynn.
a
I'm
little
glad to be
trouble.
here.
I
Hold on one
am,
second. I realize
there
I'm
is
still
an
having a
echo.
little trouble.
Hold on.
I am.
There is an
Having a
echo.
little trouble.
Hold on.
I am.
Okay, that's me. Hold on,
I
y'all.
am.
Okay, that's me. Hold on. Here we
Hold
go.
on, y'all.
Pause. I did it. I fixed it. I see now what the issue is. Sorry about that. Sorry about that, Lori.
That's okay. Interesting hearing it over and over again.
I'm telling you, that was so not intended, but it's also just the way my technology is set up right now. I just have to turn all these things off. Anyway, hi there, and welcome to the show, Lori. It's so good that you're here.
Like I said, I'm very happy to be here and really excited to have this conversation.
Yeah, great. So let me ask you something. How did you get into engineering retreats? Do you have a story like mine?
I was a chemical engineer for many years in corporate America, and but as I moved into sales and business development, one of my roles was creating experiences for my clients. And I always loved that part of my job better than I loved the engineering part. And when I started my own business, I thought I would have a retreat. And I did. I hosted a couple retreats and they were amazing. I attended retreats. And I did realize though, I attended some retreats that were great. And I attended other retreats that they weren't bad, but there was just nothing special about them. And I realized, you know, the engineer in me looked at, okay, what's the difference? Why are these so great and these so bad? And I realized that I know how to create a really great retreat and I love doing it. So not only can I do it for myself, but I can do it for other people because I don't want to, host my own retreats 12 times a year. I'd like to host one or two, yet I'd love to do it full time. So I help other people create their retreats, basically take their magic, what's special about them, and create an experience that gives their clients a transformation, creates impact, but also creates income because retreats, a lot of people think retreats are they're fun, you get something out of it, but they don't realize they can actually be a very good way to create income.
Excellent, excellent, very good. I'm excited about this. I would love to hear a story. Tell us a story about like one of the retreats you hosted or your adventures on a retreat. Do you have any fun stories you can share with us?
Yeah, I can share a couple. One of the retreats I went to, and I actually worked with the host on help putting it together, it was called the World Changers Retreat in Fiji. So like going to Fiji alone is amazing.
Royal changes. That's
World changers, like changing the world.
Oh, world changes. Okay, I
World
got that.
changers, yes.
Mhm,
So world changers in Fiji, and Fiji was incredible. But what the retreat was at this resort, and we had all these retreat activities. But for almost all of the hosts, the things that were the most impactful and the most valuable were our connections with the people who lived in Fiji. Like we were staying at this resort, and it was on an island. And the people who worked at the resort, the staff, were on this same island. But we were in the resort and they had their own little staff quarters in the back, and when they were on shift they lived there, and then they'd have 3 days off and go back to their homes. And one of them invited us to come to a kava ceremony. And kava is what the people in Fiji do. It's I guess it's not really a drug per se. It's something that relaxes you, and but there's a whole lot of ceremony with passing the bowl and things you say. And we said, we had a group of about 10 people, and we're like, yes, sure, we'll go. And we went back to they took us down this dirt road to the center of the island into this little house, and we walked into this area, and there were like these like 10 men sitting in this big tarp, and it was kind of like intimidating at first. And it ended up being one of the highlights of the retreat because we got to know, not only we get to experience their culture and their ceremony, but then we got talking to them and we got to know, where they live and where they buy the really cool shirts they wear. And it was just so much fun. And I think that's so important when you have a retreat, to not just go to a beautiful resort and get yoga, and massages, but also to connect with that community, because that's when you really do make those connections, learn how the rest of the other people in parts of the world live, and create a ripple that goes far beyond the retreat.
Yeah, that is beautiful. I've had that experience as well. And that is definitely the beauty of being on a retreat in a foreign land.
Mhm.
I absolutely love that as an example. And and I guess this is really interesting because the topic for today, by the way, this is Bold Conversations Mondays. By the way, everyone, this is Bold Conversations Mondays, and I have the wrong branding up. Now we have the right branding. Hold on, let me fix this. There we go. Now I have the right branding up. It's Monday, So if you were looking for Bold Conversations Mondays and you were wondering why it said Fridays, it's because I forgot to change the branding. Okay, I forgot.
I was wondering, I'm like, what day of the week is it? I had to think to myself.
I'm telling you, man. But you know what? Mercury is officially retrograde and I'm here for it. I'm here to make all the mistakes right now. It's okay. So, Lori, I love that you mentioned having the interactions with the people who are actually the inhabitants of the lands that you're visiting. Um, I think that type of connection makes the retreat even better. It's one thing, as you said, to be sheltered in the retreat center, but it's another thing to be invited into someone's home or into someone's ceremony. I remember being in Bali and being invited to weddings and funerals and birthday parties, but I was also there for a long time. So that didn't all happen in just 1 week or 2 days. It happened over my time of being there for 3 months. But that whole idea, though, of being in a retreat is really, really wonderful for that. Now, the topic for our conversation is definitely about what how hosting a retreat makes you a great leader. Now, when I was thinking about this topic for us, I started thinking back to um, my own experience hosting retreat. Now, again, I'm new. And if you are watching this live, please in the comments, let us know if you want to host a retreat or if you're thinking about hosting retreats or if you've hosted retreats. How do you feel about them? What's exciting about it or what do you fear? So, what I learned very early on from hosting retreats is that it shows you what kind of a leader you are. I know that I'm the type of a leader who is very spontaneous. I take chances. I throw myself out there and without a lot of planning. That showed up in my retreat. Um, the retreat actually that I pulled off came off very well. All of them have actually managed to come off very well. However, I do not feel like I was ever at my best because I did not get proper training. I did it as a renegade, just kind of feeling my way through, using my instincts, and working that way never let me actually relax into um, being a good retreat host or doing my presentation at my best. What do you think about that,
Yeah,
Lori?
no, I can see that. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why I love what I do in business, because I allow the retreat host to be that leader, to bring their magic. And then they're not worried about the agenda, the timing, the food, all that other stuff. Because myself and my team, we handle that for you. So when we do all that, your focus is to go out there and be that leader, give your client that transformation they want, and you're not worried about all the details. We'll put together the agenda, we'll tell you when you're on schedule. And retreats need schedule, yet they also need flexibility. Like, put together an agenda, but you don't want to ever, if something's going really well, you stay at that topic and you keep going. You don't want to have to deal with, okay, we're going to end this thing right now to move to the next thing if everybody's joined it. And that's why that having someone to modify and handle that for you makes it a lot easier on the host, because the host then just gets to go up there and be themselves and they get to do what they do best. And they don't have to worry about all that other stuff in the background.
Yeah, that sounds like a winning. It makes sense to me at this point. Now, what I discovered as I was, putting together these retreats, I've done 3 of them. Um, one of the good things though that I learned 4 really good things, and one of them was that as a retreat planner, as a retreat host, as a retreat um, leader, you discover how you guide people. Like you learn about yourself as you guide people. And, when you're organizing people ahead of time, when you are leading people through a process from the beginning to the end, you kind of learn what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. And Lori, this reminds me of your framework that you talked about before we got on this call. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. Yeah. The framework I have, it's a three-step process, and it's magic, momentum, and then movement. And it starts with the magic, and the magic is where the retreat leader really connects with themselves. Who are you? Who are you intrinsically inside? It's not like you're transforming to someone new. You're being the best possible you, and you're accepting yourself, and you're loving what you offer, and you're taking that magic and sharing it with the world. And when you accept it, you're unapologetically you. So that's why every retreat is different, because every retreat has a different leader. And you can go to a retreat and it can be in the same location and it can be on the same topic, and you can have a completely different experience when that retreat leader is being themselves. So that's the magic, that you bring that magic, that you, good, bad, your strengths, your weaknesses, everything about you that makes your program uniquely yours. And
Yeah.
you lead the way you lead. And what that does is it leads to momentum. And it's interesting, momentum, if you look at a business, business is lead generation, business is sales, and business is fulfillment. And a retreat is one of the few places where you can do all three, because you're generating new people are your leads, and then you're selling the retreat. Every retreat should be selling something, because the people are there, they've had that amazing experience with you. You don't want to send them home, you want to give them a way to continue it. So you've got the sales, and then even if they just attend the retreat, they're getting that fulfillment. So it really builds momentum in your business. And it also creates a movement in that, retreats, they transform the attendees, they transform the leader. And I think the best retreats really do create a ripple effect that transforms the world, which is that movement where you're not just, creating an amazing business, an amazing event, but you're putting it forward and putting it out there into the world.
And that transformation people receive, I think, is very much what they are supposed to take into the world. And
Mhm.
that helps to better it even more. And I know definitely when you host a retreat, you're bringing um, people into a community, and and the community is being served, the retreat center is being served, sure, and the staff is being served, but also the community that is hosting that retreat center. That is, you bring a lot of goodness to that
Mhm.
through through the workers who are there participating or helping, but also through your dollar, by buying things, and going home with goodies, and taking pieces of the retreat back home with you, for sure.
Yeah.
Not to mention, of course, the transformation that the leaders are bringing, for sure. Thank you for sharing your framework with us, Lori. One of the things I also noticed as a leader of a retreat is that I learned so much about my own management and coordination skills. I have a Virgo moon, okay? I tend to be very organized in the way that I do things. I like orderly structure. I'm very timely. I like things to run. I like for there to be back end organization so that I can kind of go out and be free, free to do
Mhm.
what I need to do, and knowing that I have a good container that's backing me up. It's very, very important. And I noticed that with organizing a retreat, it really puts it to the test. And
Mhm.
I know that you do this for people, but maybe you can talk to me about this as not, not doing it for people, or rather what it does for you to be able to do this. You've mentioned that you are a former engineer, and you say that you engineer retreats. Well, one of the things that I've learned is that, boy, getting the logistics together, coordinating the people, coordinating the housing, the food, the snacks, the schedules, all that kind of thing really takes a certain mindset and a willingness to be an engineer.
Yeah, I think it does. And one thing, if I can give this tip to anyone who's thinking about hosting a retreat, don't ever do it by yourself. Have somebody there to help you, because you want the logistics. When you're organizing a retreat or even facilitating a retreat, hosting a retreat, I always say you have to be kind of like a duck. Like if you ever see a duck on the water, it looks like it's just calmly, flowing along. But if you see the duck from the bottom, the feet are going a mile a minute, and it's really scary. And that's what retreats, because you never know what's going to happen at a retreat. You could be in the middle of this incredible transformative experience, and you're teaching something, or everybody's in this deep meditation, and the toilet overflows, or someone, like you want to have assistance. So always have someone to help you so that you don't have to deal with all the details. Yet it does take a mindset to run a retreat where you have to be organized and flexible, because you want to have a plan, something what you want to cover, yet you also want to be willing to let it go if it doesn't make sense, or if it's not working, or if something else is coming along, or if maybe you get an opportunity, you're not planning to do, I don't know, a hike, and then suddenly there's an amazing rainbow, and it's like, oh, we've got to go out there now. So you want to be flexible enough to take advantage of what the location offers, or what may have come up that you didn't think of that works really well. Yet you want to be organized enough that you at least have, a skeleton framework of what you want to cover and where you want to get to. And the other thing, you want to leave time, because a retreat it's about connecting with the host, connecting with the other people at the retreat, connecting with the community. Yet it's also really important to connect with yourself.
Mhm.
And if you don't leave that time, some downtime. And I was at a retreat one time, and it was great, but it was so scheduled. It was like, from 9 in the morning till 9 at night, we were going. And sometimes you just want to sit and think about, okay, what did I learn? What am I doing? Maybe even take a nap. So leave some time for people to have some free time.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm thinking about a retreat that I held in Paris, and inviting people in to the city and figuring out how to coordinate people in the city, getting around, and then expressing the expectations ahead of time. That was something, because I didn't want to. That one was actually very tough because I wanted us to have a cozy experience. So we did an Airbnb. I didn't want to block off a chain of, a bunch of hotels. I wanted us to be in a big house and, uh, coming together, getting up in the morning, having breakfast together, and then going out into the city, doing things. It was just how to get that spontaneity in there that was really, really challenging, actually. Even though I love the city, I'm really, I know the city, but making sure that people were comfortable. And this kind of goes back to what I was thinking about earlier, Lori, and maybe you can speak to this, but I found it people were very different when they traveled, and learning about the personalities of people who were clients that I've known for years, all of a sudden seeing them when they have a lot of fear because
Mhm.
we're traveling, uh, but also they're in a group of people that they didn't know, and you learn about them when they're with you one on one. It's one thing, but when they get in a group, if they've got fear, that fear comes out, and how to manage all your little ducklings was definitely that was something to learn about.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, yeah. People definitely can behave differently, good or bad. And just, some people are really comfortable in crowds, and once they're quiet when they're in their, little Zoom room, but once they get out in public, it's like, oh, I didn't expect that. And other people are the opposite. And that's why it's great to have, the time for people to connect with each other, get to know each other, have those just so events so they can, they're not rushed into something really difficult. I think of a retreat like in some ways it's a little bit, like climbing a mountain. You want to start with a slow peak. You don't want to just stick them right up on, give them a chance to acclimate and then maybe put in something. So that's why the flow is really important. But yeah, it's a great, even leaders, a leader could be in a conference room, they're very comfortable, and you put them out in, on a hike, and suddenly they're not. So it's fun though. I think that's part of the joy of a retreat, is you really get to know people in all aspects of their life. Because you can spend 8 hours even in a conference room, but until you've spent 5 or 6 days where you're with someone the whole time, you really get to know people that way.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And, early on you said, don't host the retreat by yourself, right?
Yeah.
And the very first retreat I did, I actually did have a team with me. But it was a team that I put together maybe 3 days before the retreat. But I'm glad that I had them. I'm so glad that I had them, because they did a wonderful job of coordinating things and taking charge and things. And I was able to be able to focus. One retreat, though, I did not have anyone assisting me, and that's just because my assistant had fallen through at the very last minute. That was very challenging, but it was a very small, intimate thing. And I guess that kind of leads me to my last point, is that you learn about yourself as a leader when you have an incredible amount of pressure on you and things are going wrong,
Yeah.
and it's very easy to collapse under that pressure. If someone has a bad vibe, or they're upset, or something is just not going right, and people maybe are complaining, I don't know, but I can imagine that happening. And I was just thinking about a friend of mine who had a meltdown at a retreat, and the retreat leaders were not expecting that. That wasn't really what the retreat was about. It wasn't a retreat where it could really hold space for someone having a meltdown. But it was a place where she had traveled to. She was in a different country. She had just broken up with a boyfriend, and she just could not contain her emotions. And she had already agreed to this retreat, invested her money in it. And my heart went out to the retreat givers, because I understand that they weren't prepared for that level of emotional disruption. But I also, when someone is emotional and sad, and they're experiencing a sense of loss during your retreat, that's kind of where you've got to learn how to step in as a leader, and not simply, just say, I'm so sorry, you have to leave. We can't deal with you right now. Was awful.
Right. Yeah, that's a great story. But those moments can become the most powerful moments of the retreat when they're handled well. I mean, someone has a meltdown, or someone has people don't get along and they have a disagreement. Like, you don't just want to sweep it under the rug. You want to address it. You want to have people, and maybe, not necessarily, if people are disagreeing, maybe you talk to them one-on-one, but leaving space for those type of things. And we're business owners, we're leaders. Yeah, we're all human. And having the ability, I think a retreat should allow you to have the ability to be human. And sometimes you might, I was at a retreat one time, and one person was having something going on, and she just said, today I'm going to stay in my room all day. That's what I need. And you have to allow that. You have to accept, okay, great. If you need anything, let us know. If you want us to bring your food to the room, let us know. We'll arrange that. Creating that space for people to get what they want, but also when things happen, using that as a teaching point or a training point or an opportunity to grow can make things come out of the retreat that you never even expected.
Absolutely. Beautiful. Yeah, beautiful. So, Lori, I've got a few questions for you. In your experience working with coaches who are building retreats, what is the moment when they realize that this is more that this is about more than just creating an experience, that they realize that it's revealing something about themselves as a leader? In other words, when do you see that discomfort in the retreat leader coming out?
Yeah, it usually happens with the first problem, the first thing that doesn't go as planned. Like it's funny. Did a retreat, one of my own retreats recently in Honduras, and we got there and we were staying, in we flew into Roatan. We were staying there, and I had all these plans, and I realized it was the election there, and I didn't realize that on election night, all the restaurants and bars were closed down.
Oh, wow.
And it was like, oh my, well, I have, 12 people here who are expecting to eat,
Right.
and I have no food.
Mhm.
And, at times that's when you really see, like for me, I love to find creativity and connect with people and just talking to people. I talked to someone, I asked him, where can we get food? And he's like, oh, he knew, and through this connection, that connection, we found someone who owned a restaurant that was willing to open it up just for us. So we had our own private restaurant. But some people would freak out, or like that. The first thing that goes wrong is when you really like kind of want to connect with yourself and say, okay, how do I handle this in a way that really lets me grow, gives my people what they want, and yet I'm dealing with something that's different, that I wasn't expecting. So that, the problem is one of the big things. And then I think when people get tired too, because hosting a retreat can be hard work, especially if you don't give yourself downtime.
Mhm.
A lot of retreat hosts, they'll give the attendees downtime, but they schedule themselves to do something. And I recommend, if you're giving them downtime, take that downtime for yourself too, because they're long days and it's a lot of work. And when you get tired is when you start to really feel that, like, okay, I'm exhausted, and how do I keep going? And that's where you might end up, being short tempered or just not putting yourself in the best light. So those are the two moments that I think, when something goes wrong, or after, usually on day 3 is when people start to get really tired.
Mhm. For sure, for sure. I'm thinking about a 3-day retreat and how much we tend to pack into those. I mean,
Mhm.
it's like, okay, you're up at 6 and then you're down at 9, like, and all the stuff that you use to fill in that's just very
Right. Yeah, a
fatiguing.
lot.
Fatiguing for sure. Now, what is the biggest mistake that you see coaches make when they're planning their first retreat? And what does that mistake tell you about where they are in their own leadership development?
I think the biggest mistake, which I've seen a lot of coaches plan their first retreat, is they have this big vision of a retreat. Okay, I'm going to host a retreat at, in Bali or in Fiji or, in Costa Rica. And I'm going to pick this amazing place, and they find the venue and they put the deposit down and they expect people to come. Yet they never really think about, like, okay, why am I hosting the retreat? Because
Mhm.
everybody, I mean, a retreat without a purpose is really just a vacation. And
Mm,
vacations are nice, but you're not going to sell 20 people a vacation at the same time at the same place.
right.
So that before you even think about the place, think about why you want to host a retreat,
Mhm.
who the retreat is for, what outcome you're looking for, and then make your marketing to that, put your place to that, fit your budget to that, and it makes the retreat much more coherent, where people then say, oh, I want to go to this retreat. Because a lot of people make that mistake, and then they feel like, oh, retreats don't work because I did this retreat and I lost money and I just gave up.
Mm.
So that's what, I think retreats can be amazing. You can make lots of money from retreats, you can have a huge impact, yet it does require a little more planning than just having a great location and, sending it out there and expecting people to come.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that as advice. I had to kind of like hide my face a little bit of shame here, like she just called me out, all right? But for sure, like the idea of having a retreat in Paris, like it's such a great idea, but understanding the nature of Paris and understanding that that's a place you need a special type of retreat if you're going to have it in Paris. is it really a retreat, or is it a getaway, or is it a shopping thing, or is it a, a tour? Like maybe it's not a retreat, you know?
Right. Yeah,
But
and I think you can have a retreat anywhere if you think about it, the right way. I mean, I've had retreats an hour from my house, and it was amazing, and it's not like it's a destination, but it was people, you could have a 2-day retreat, and if you just find the right purpose and, why it's there, the retreat might be just a get away from business and get to know yourself, or it might be focus on business, and we're gonna do planning at this retreat as a group, and we're going to do a mastermind. So there's different purposes, but a retreat does require you to get away. It's hard to do a retreat. People do it, but I don't think a retreat should be done in a hotel conference room
sure.
or in your office, because that's not really a retreat. That's a conference or a meeting.
Right, exactly, exactly. No, I get that. And, this is bringing me to my own, I like doing online retreats. And, more than it being I'll do, because I am spiritual, I like to include a bunch of spiritual stuff in my online experience. But I think that there needs to be maybe a different word for it other than retreat, because I'm also a spiritual business mentor. I'm usually, I'm bringing coaches and healers together to work on their business.
Mhm.
And it's not like a conference, but it's more like a workshop that I'm doing.
Right.
And, the opportunity is to workshop some things, to kind of, come to some conclusions with things, to build some things together. So I definitely hear you on that. Like a conference room is a conference.
Right. Yeah. I
A
mean,
retreat needs to get you away.
and you can host a retreat in a conference room, but just put in an act, like even on, and I've done online retreats, and you do, they might have this purpose, but then you take a minute and you put people into breakout groups with
Yeah.
some kind of transformational activity, or you do an hour of breath work or something, before so if you're in a conference room, maybe you do in a conference room, but maybe you take an activity and it's like, okay, let's go do, as part of this retreat, we're going to take a break from the conference room and we're going to go, whether it's to a local shelter and we're going to serve dinner, or we're going to go do a hike or something. You have to have some kind of more than just sitting in the room, because then it is just a workshop or a meeting or a
Exactly.
conference.
Exactly. Exactly. So I'm going to ask you one more question. Um, how do you help a coach figure out what her retreat is actually about? So it's not just the theme, but do you help your coaches or your retreat leaders figure out kind of what their core theme is, what the transformation truly is that they're offering?
Yes, yeah. The first question, like when someone talks to me, I ask them is like, why do you want to have a retreat? And until we can answer that question, we don't go any further. Like, let's figure that one out first. Like, if you want to have a retreat, some people say, well, I want to have a retreat because I like retreats. Okay, well, what do you like about retreats? And how does that relate to your business? Who are your clients? What are your values? What's your purpose? And for me, the goal is taking you. I like to take your purpose and your magic and what your transformation is, and create it to a customized experience that
Mhm.
the retreat is yours. Like, your retreat is you're recognizing it. It's not like someone else tried to do the exact same retreat. It wouldn't make sense, because
Right.
it wouldn't be exactly the same. But yes, I help them figure out why do you want to have a retreat? What's the purpose of the retreat? What are your goals and your values? What's important to you? Because some people want to, for some people it's, I want to have a lot of movement and exercise. For other people, it's nature. For some people, it's
Mhm.
like, I want to explore a city, or because you can have a retreat. I've hosted retreats in New York City. You can have a retreat anywhere, but you want to know what it is. And then we try to match the venue and the city and the location to that purpose.
Yeah.
So if someone wanted to have a health and fitness retreat, we probably wouldn't put it in New York City. Not that there aren't healthy people there, but that's not where, you'd put it somewhere where there's hiking and fresh air and a lot of, known for healthy food and such. So you kind of fit it. And then you tailor the retreat to your client too, because there are people, there are retreats that can cost $15,000 or $20,000, and there are retreats that can cost $1,500. And you don't want to have a $10,000 retreat if your clients can pay $2,000, because so you kind of match the budget. And then we figure out, well, okay, are you going to offer something at the retreat, which is really important. And you should always have, there should always be a pre-call or two, and then there should be something afterwards, an integration period that's included in the retreat, and then something for people who want to move on. Because if someone goes to this retreat and gets an incredible experience and gets a transformation, you don't want to just say, all right, bye, and then they backslide. You want to give them the next opportunity, whether it's another retreat, whether it's a mastermind, whether it's a coaching program. You always want to have something, because they're there, they love you, they love what you do. And if you don't, you're doing them a disservice if you don't give them a way to continue to work with you.
Right, right. Yeah, beautiful. That's kind of the perfect way to end this conversation. Like, you end a retreat giving people a way to work with you so that they can take what they've learned and carry it into the next step.
Mm-hmm.
Lori, if people wanted to work with you, how would they get in touch with you? What do you have any special things that you're offering right now? What's the next step, someone listening to this, what's the next step they should take so that they can get started with working with retreats and get your help?
Yes, I actually have I have a workshop that people can come to next week, and I will I don't have the link here. I'll have to get it.
Okay.
Actually, I know it. It's called the givebackeffect.com, I think. Let me make sure it's right.
Thegivebackeffect.com?
Yeah, but there's a dash, I think, in give back. Let me make sure.
All right, I'm going to look it up too. But Lori, when they are working with you, I think I have it. I've got it here, Lori.
Yeah, okay.
What is this workshop about?
This workshop is about retreats, and what it's about that's really cool is how to put a give back effect actually into your retreat, but where you actually give back to the local community, but it makes your retreat more valuable. It makes people it helps you charge a premium for your retreat, but give people an experience that they're willing to pay for, because not only are they getting something for themselves, but they're doing something for the world.
Ah, okay.
And
Fantastic.
there's a code to get to that retreat for free, and it's VIP 2026. So if you use the code VIP 2026, you can get into that retreat for free. And then if you go to my webpage, which is yourextraordinarylife.net, I have lots of free gifts on the webpage, information about the type of retreats. You can book a call with me if you want to learn more about a retreat, or just talk about, what it might be like if you want to plan a retreat.
Excellent. And I see Stephanie has joined us. Hey, Stephanie. Hi, friend. It's so good to see you. Thank you so much for popping by. Lori, this is great. I think this is going to be a great retreat. I think that, honestly, just from my own perspective, first of all, okay, now I'm going to be very, I'm just going to say my own truth. All right. If you're going to host a retreat, don't be afraid to go big and get somebody's help. Get Lori's help to help you. A lot of times, and this month here in the Spiritual Business Hour, we are focusing on your purpose. And if you're someone who feels called to do a retreat, then do it for sure. And I know that there's a lot of fear around charging what the retreat is worth. And I know that someone like Lori can help you figure out and get around that. Lori, do you help women or help your coaches with their mindset at all when it comes to these kinds of things?
I do. Yes, I help them learn, realize what the value is, and put it out there, and really know that you're giving something, you're selling something that's valuable. People will come to it if they see the value and they know what it is, and I help them market it. So we do everything from getting the coach ready. We can actually put your retreat in the future and the day after it, and we can celebrate how successful it was. So really, whatever some coaches are ready and they're really comfortable saying this is a $7,000 retreat. Other people are like, oh, well, people aren't going to pay me $4,000. It's like, well, yes, they will, because that's what it's worth. And that people, if you give people $8,000 worth of value, they're going to pay you $4,000.
Right. Excellent. Yes. And that's so true. If you want to set your program at $4,000, you just make sure you give them $8,000 of value and you help them see that. It really is that simple, right?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So I want to thank you, Lori, for joining me here today and bringing your retreat wisdom. Um, and I also want to thank you, dear watcher, dear listener, for joining us and supporting the Spiritual Business Hour. I know my friend Stephanie Treasure is always here with me. Thank you, Stephanie. And Stephanie, by the way, did a great episode. Was that last week or the week before? Look, I'm on my 16th episode here. I cannot keep up with all the episodes, but we had a great talk, and you can see that in my news feed there. But thank you so much for joining us here. If you want to have the cheat sheets, you can look in one of these corners. There is a QR code. You can go there and get the cheat sheet. And yeah, it's free to join. And I'm doing this every day, Monday through Friday, 2:00 p.m. Pacific, 5:00 Eastern. Thank you so much for joining us for the Spiritual Business Hour. I'll be back here again tomorrow. Tomorrow is Heal Yourself Tuesday. So if you want to do some of that with me, just be here at 2:00. All right, friend. Thank you so much for joining. I will see you soon. Bye for now. Bye, everybody.